What are the signs of being a psychic or a medium? Well, first of all, there's no mistaking when you have intuitive skills because you feel very different on a lot of levels than other people. So, for example, you always have this sense of knowing things, and people will be really drawn to you to tell you their life story. Um, and it just depends on what your skill set is as well. And if you're a medium, well, that's kind of obvious because you will have encounters with spirit. You don't always see spirit because fear can block your experience of sight, especially when you're a young medium. And I say young in the sense of your abilities, not your age. There's a sense of knowing about who died. It's just a download. Sometimes you can physically hear them, you physically see them. They're very clear when they're communicating, and you can feel each medium has their own skill set. So, for example, I feel how people died. I hear them, I see them. So all my clairsentience, like my intuitive skill set on my senses are dialed in. So the more you develop your skills, the more you're able to taste, smell, see, hear, feel. The best way to tell if a spirit is in the light or not in the light is how they come through. I feel like I need to explain that a little bit deeper. Number one, if a spirit comes through and they don't have a high moral fiber, you can feel uneasy and the same symptoms that they're going through. So their personality traits. So, for example, if Charles Manson came through, you might feel uneasy, paranoid, confused, fearful, because that's the energy that he resonates with, and that's his personality in spirit coming through. So it can be a little confusing in the beginning. Next, when an oppressed spirit comes through, it comes through and drains your energy. It's dense. It can be exhausting. Like I said, really confusing energy. And you may feel the energy vibrations differently if it's not a spirit that's in the light. Lastly, I always tell mediums, especially when they're early on in their journey, never call on the deceased. If you're really good at mediumship, your guides and angels are just going to escort them in naturally. You always want to say a prayer and a blessing to create a sacred space so that nothing negative comes in and you get a clear, authentic spirit coming through. How you can tell a spirit is coming through with your intuition is it's a sense of instant knowing. The information flows, and you're going to, like, if you're sitting there with someone, you're going to be able to say, hey, this is coming through. For example, I had a little dog come through, and in the beginning, I didn't want to do pet readings because it already felt weird. I was already seeing dead people. Now I'm going to talk to dead pets. Like, it just seems strange to me. And I didn't want to come across any weirder than I already was. But this pet was persistent, which speaks to the pet's personality. And then he kept dropping avocados in front of me. And I was like, okay. Like, and his energy got louder and louder until I paid attention to him. So I said to the person in front of me, hey, do you happen to know this type of dog? He's bringing me avocados. Well, she burst into tears because she just put her dog down and they have an avocado tree in their backyard. Now, obviously, this was in Hawaii, so it wasn't in, Canada. And so we went on, and I was able to tell her directly from her pet many messages, so she had closure. So it just depends. You can decipher spirit from ego, because ego makes you force, you're grasping at straws, the information doesn't come freely, and you just feel differently. It's just a vibrational thing. So pay attention to those nudges when you're in ego or when you're reading from spirit. If you just pay attention to the information coming through, and everything around you, everything that you see, everything that you smell, feel, taste is all a part of the reading. So, I mean, it's very easy for me. It's great to be able to try to explain that, but it's kind of complicated. So everyone has this innate ability within them, or a gut instinct that tells you from a higher source whether or not that you're supposed to turn left or right, go straight, skip a party. When you ignore that and you go to the party that, that gut instinct told you not to, and you get there and it's a complete disaster and you wish you hadn't gone, and chaos ensues. And then you sit in your car and you go, man, I wish I didn't go. I knew I shouldn't have gone. That's your higher self. That's your intuition telling you, hey, it's not in your best interest to go. And the more you listen to those little nudges, the louder your connection gets to your soul and your higher self. If you want to learn to develop your skill set, my first suggestion is never compare yourself to anyone. Every medium, every intuitive gets their inclination differently than somebody else. The more you develop communication with spirit and open yourself up to be willing to be sort of a mediator from the messages that come to you to people that need to hear it, the more they flow freely. The first thing I recommend is meditation. Meditate, meditate, meditate. The more you meditate and calm the quietness of the human ego and make that connection to spirit by releasing things that don't serve you, the mind chatter, nerves, and fear, you begin to see the pictures more clearly. Having confidence that you are profoundly clairvoyant and trusting the images, and like I said before, everything you think, feel, and see that comes through, the more you do that, the stronger the impressions get. So meditation is the first step. Finding a mentor and really understanding how you receive. Are you a feeler? Do you feel? So that would be like empathy or empathic. For me, when spirits come through that have had been murdered or died through a traumatic event, not only do I feel that, so let's say someone got stabbed, I literally will feel a stab. And as the stab happens, an image will also pop into my mind of a knife. And then I'm able to say, was this person stabbed in their ribs behind? You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things that the more you are willing to develop and listen to spirit, the stronger your gifts get. I want to encourage people that don't feel they can meditate, or they get in their head about trying to meditate the right way. I heard this thing once that said you meditate to get good at, how did that go? You don't meditate to get good at meditation. You meditate to get good at life. And so when you're tuning out to tune in to the voice of spirit or your guides or God or whomever your belief system is, the louder their voice gets. And listen, it's not going to be like Morgan Freeman's voice sounding over the barriers of your own imagination, saying, what to do. It is going to sound like your own voice because it is coming from a higher self as well. The best thing to do to practice calmness and stillness, you don't have to be perfect at meditation. You don't have to, sit in, a supine position or, in the Om. You can find many ways that you're comfortable with meditation. When people are beginning to meditate, I always encourage them to close your eyes, take a nice deep breath, and pay attention to how the energy is flowing in your body. And then start counting and do 3 to 4 cycles of 1 to 10. So breathing in, holding for a count of 1, exhaling for a count of 1, and then continue to 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. By the time you get to 10, you're holding your breath for 10 seconds. You're exhaling for 10 seconds. And you're going to find that you're calm. The more you focus on the life force energy of the body, which is your breath work, the more you can tune into spirit, calm the mind chatter, the daily pulls, and just make that conscious practice, because we really are programmed not to live in a positive space, not to be calm, and not to go within or seek out truth or light. When you're focusing on other things like washing your hair, doing the dishes, you're jogging, whatever, you're still needing a secondary distraction from just being present. Yes, you can do walking meditations, but what are you doing when you're walking? What are you thinking about? Those are the things that matter when you step out of yourself and just make that 5-minute connection to your breath, to step out of being pulled to do something. I think there's something to be said about being mindfully quiet and still. So I think there's a 2-part question here, with the sense of, how did I know that I was a medium? And then how do you know who your guides are? Firstly, I'm a natural born intuitive. So I always grew up knowing that I could see, feel, and hear. I was always consciously aware of being different. Being a generational intuitive comes with many generations of seers, feelers, clairvoyants, psychics, mediums. My mom was a psychic. She did tarot and tea leaves and palm readings. She was very clairvoyant, very psychic. And I don't remember ever not seeing spirits. So they've been a part of my life since I was in diapers. As far as your spirit guides go, this is a really intriguing question to me. I've also learned, people get so fixated on who and why instead of just being present for that. You have many spirit guides throughout your lifetime. And at different stages where you're at, you'll draw in the right guide. And that could be a guardian angel, a deceased family member, someone from a soul connection. It can be very different. And if you truly have to know their name, you can ask them directly, please let me know your name. It's important to me. Where other times, me personally, I never ask. I honestly don't focus on their names. Sometimes I get names that just pop in my head, but I also believe that they don't tell us directly what their names are because humans tend to control and monopolize them. So it's better just to say guides and angels, whoever's with me, give me a sign that you're with me. So pick something specific that you will recognize as a message from your guides and angels, but don't focus so much on, oh, I must know your name. I mean, I don't think it's relevant all the time to know their name. In my experience, you can have a guide that you've never met, a family member. For example, I used to have this woman come to me all the time, and I think it was 16, no, 14 when I first saw her. And she was walking across the room, and she had this big purple flamboyant dress on with this big Victorian purple hat. She was very like, you know, eccentric in the way she was presenting herself. But I was sitting on the toilet at the time in the middle of the night, and there she is walking past. I started screaming. I freaked out. I ran to my mom countless times. And she said, oh, that's your great aunt, Mill. And I don't remember her except for maybe two instances when I was young meeting her. And so we didn't have like a huge relationship, yet she was there to uh, guide and protect me. And anytime that I was feeling overwhelmed with life, she definitely made a way of showing up, even through scent. So certain guides come through with specific smells. Like, for example, whenever Jesus is around me, I will smell incense and frankincense really, really strong. In fact, I was renting this room one time and at the back of this store. And she said, you can't have any scents here because it bothers me. Sure, no problem. So I'm doing a session and I can hear her pacing in the hallway. And I was like, what the heck? And then after my session, she knocks on my door. She comes in and she pauses for a second. And she said, it's the strangest thing, Maryne. While you were doing your session, I was so insulted because I thought that you lit incense and I could smell frankincense. And I was like, I told her no sense. And then coming in here, I can see you didn't light any sense. Can you explain that to me? I was like, oh, that was Jesus. I called on Jesus to help this woman that I was working with, and she was smelling the essence of Jesus. So other people can experience it as well, even if they're not seeing or a medium or intuitive, they can experience just by being around. Something I really want people to understand is the majority of people that pass on, having a near-death experience myself, there's this profound change in you. Everything that you had attached yourself to your human experience no longer is a concern for you. And you just see the truth of the situation. And once they're over on the other side, they no longer hold on to the bitterness, the anger, the frustration, especially if they're open to evolving. That being said, I have had a spirit come through angry at their loved one for how they passed on. In fact, it was quite bizarre. I had a school teacher book in with me who had been doing drugs with her boyfriend, on again, off again husband. They divorced, separated, and whatever. And she ended up murdering him and then booked a reading 3 days after. Because she booked in 3 days after she shot him and then set her house on fire, he was angry. There was no nice, fluffy things coming through. But she booked the reading because she wanted to know if he forgave her. It was far too soon for him to do that because he had left so abruptly, suddenly, before his time. And essentially, everything happens exactly when we're supposed to. Because he had free will, he found himself in, the midst of chaos, and there was no coming out from that. So, of course, he didn't forgive her, and he was angry. But, when I've met family members, like fathers that are coming through for their daughters that didn't show up in this lifetime for them, there's a gentleness about them. And I had one abusive father come through so distraught, and he just wanted his daughter to know that he was sorry, he loved her, and he wished he could have been a better father. But the daughter wasn't ready to hear all of that. She literally said, I don't want to hear from him, shut it down. And that's what mediumship is. Sometimes it's not what you think you want to hear, but it's always what you need to hear. They often forget their physical pain. They're not attached to that experience anymore because they've shed it, they've let go of it. Their soul is separate from their personality, and their personality is what has passed on, and then their spiritual soul will live on through entire entity or lifetimes, like universes. That's why we tend to come back if we feel like we haven't experienced anything that or we didn't resolve things that we need to resolve. So as far as Alzheimer, this is really interesting. In my experience, when someone with Alzheimer's comes through, depending on when the person gets the reading, one, they always show me the Alzheimer's through confusion and other physical things, because sometimes they have a hard time separating themselves from that energy, and because there's confusion around it, and they lost the connection to their personality and their soul, and it's almost like something else jumps in, like a traveler. It's hard to explain. That's a whole other topic. And now I'm not saying that the people are possessed. I'm saying that they've already checked out when they have Alzheimer's. They're not present anymore. Their soul left before their personality body was done. And therefore, that's why they don't recognize anyone, because it's not your loved one. They're not there anymore. And sometimes they come back to check in, and it just means that their soul contract ended before their personality contract ended. Being an experienced medium and a lifelong medium, the only ritual and preparation I do to prepare for readings is I meditate. I keep the elevation of my house filled with peace. I'm mindful on a daily basis what I put into my body, mind, and my spirit. So everything that I eat, everything that I read, watch, even the thoughts I speak, I'm always preparing to be one with my guides and live what I believe on a different level. So I'm really always prepared. I don't specifically light candles. Sometimes I do to set the ambiance for the sitter, but I always pray, may nothing negative come in, nothing negative go out, only high vibrations live here. But because I make a conscious effort to raise the vibrations of my home, it's already prepared. I've already set the stage. So that's something to think about as well. I heard this famous medium say this, and it took me back for a bit because I was kind of offended in the way it was presented. And he said, I don't like when mediums say I'm gifted. These are abilities. And so I was like, what? Because these abilities are a gift. It is a gift to be able to share your abilities with other people. And when you're proficient with it, it's a whole other ball game to really live your life to being of service. And let me tell you, it's not about money. It's not about fame. Being of service is genuinely the call within you to facilitate healing of people's lives, enrich them, help them on their journey, and, help them find closure. So I think these gifts, these abilities are gifts, and they're both. It is an ability, it is a gift. And so he wasn't wrong by saying he prefers to say their abilities. But to me, I think it's important to remember being humble about it out of ego, but it is a gift. I feel like it's a gift to be able to share with all the clients that come to me my abilities of seeing the other side, feeling their loved ones, being able to communicate on such a deep level to solve murders, to communicate from victims' point of view, to losing babies or fertility work, hearing from pets. It is such a blessing to be able to use my gifts in such profound ways. The interesting thing about when I do readings, something happens to me that's so interesting is it's kind of out of body experience for me. When their loved one comes in, the information comes really quickly. I tend not to ask questions, and I ask the sitter not to explain too much about why they're booking. When people book in with me, I ask them, just give me your first name, set your intentions to what you want to come through, what you need to hear. And if I don't cover it by the end, you can ask some questions. Most of the time, 99% of the time, because I'm listening to spirit, those messages, their questions, who they wanted to hear from, all comes through because I'm listening to spirit and tuning into that and not from ego. The other really interesting thing is because I see so many spirits come through, I don't remember what I read, 2 weeks ago from someone or a month ago. And that prevents me, the medium, from getting bogged down with all the information. That being said, when a spirit has profoundly changed my life, I will forever remember that experience. For example, I had this suicide gentleman kept coming through, and by the third day I was exhausted and I was really upset by him showing me more details each night. So I said to him off the top of my hat, listen, bring me your living or stop coming because I don't know how to help you. Like, this is just too upsetting. I got a life to live. I'm still human. And a couple of weeks went by. He didn't come anymore. And then this woman booked in. And if you know me, I'm directionally challenged. And at the time, I was going to people's houses. I don't do that anymore. But I went to her house and I found my way. And this is before GPS. So I was like already in this euphoric state. And I pull up and she's standing outside waiting for me, which for some reason unnerved me. Anyway, I walked in the door and there was this great big memorial picture of the dude from 2 weeks ago, of like at the time, who had committed suicide. I was able to tell her the 3 days of transition, of contemplation and follow through, and the reasons why. And it really was a forced suicide, and it gave the family a lot of closure. But that to me showed me that, one, spirits really do listen to the rules and boundaries that I set up, which is not in the bedroom, not in the bathroom, for obvious reasons. Don't watch me sleep. It's creepy. And don't watch me in the bathroom. I do stuff in there, I'm not always clothed. So, and it's kind of unnerving, waking up and seeing a spirit standing there. Hello, can you help me? Um, so yeah, he really taught me, you know, that they listen, and um, that I work for the dead. As creepy as that sounds, you know, that was validation for me. So sometimes, yes, it's possible to remember, but not always. Most of the time, I don't remember a reading. So I've been blessed to be a part of a few documentaries. I can't go into the details because I signed an NDA. However, I can tell you what I learned from that. And that was to have confidence in the skill set that I have of being a psychic medium, which means I'm clairvoyant and I see dead people. So not every psychic is a medium, but every medium is a psychic. And it was really life changing. One, I learned just how much I am in the light and I'm safe and protected, because there was a lot of unsettling, um, demonic forces out there that I was not prepared for in my own little bubble of my home and my sanctuary. Um, that really was life changing for me. So, not everything is light and fluffy out in the real world when you're working on true crime. And I also learned that the victims of violent crimes really want their stories to be told. They want help. So they come through with such profound detail that really blows my mind. And I'm sad that, none of them have been picked up as of yet. Um, but still life changing. I learned so much, and I learned so much about myself to have confidence with peopling. Peopling is really difficult for most intuitive people, because we see life so differently that it's really hard to have authentic relationships when you see people at their core and the truth of the situation. You already know most of the time how it's going to pan out. So it can be profoundly difficult to people. You can find me on the Best Psychic Directory, which is a really fun story. Real quick, I went to Kennebunkport, Maine to take an advanced mediumship course with John Holland, because I wanted to do more platform mediumship, but I didn't have the confidence and I wasn't sure what it was going to look like. So I thought, well, I'll take a workshop. So I took this workshop. I learned so much, but he was calling people up to do readings throughout the whole workshop. And I was really nervous. I was like, and then he's like, where's the girl with the short, spiky hair? Because at the time I had a little pixie cut. So, of course, that was me. So I go up, and it was blindfold. So, what that means is you can't visually connect with your sitter. So, your back is to people. And all of a sudden, I felt a hand on my shoulder, and this spirit downloaded his motorcycle accident, how he died, his name, what he did for a living, all this pertinent information. And it just so happened to be the medium that was standing beside me who had prayed for a connection to her fiance. At the end of it, there was a private investigator there who does this website that he certifies and legitimizes each medium. So because he witnessed me in action, he asked me to join the website. So that's how I got on the directory. So you can find me on the Best Psychic directory. You can find me on my website, marynehachey.ca. You can find me on Instagram and my Facebook page. You can find me on Chronicles of a Medium podcast, which is conversations into mediumship, true crime, and kind of everything in between.